In this problem, we want to consider the impact of an $8 tax on the supplier. So a tax of $8 per unit is imposed on the supplier of an item. The original supply curve is Q equals 0.5p minus 25, and the original demand curve is Q equals 165 minus 0.5p, where p represents the price in dollars. So, looking at this, we identify that we have a supply and a demand curve, and I'm going to graph those in Desmos. So I'm going to have Q equals 0.5 P minus 25, and the demand curve Q equals 165 minus 0.5 P. Now, in order to graph this, I want to set the axes in the window so that I can see these graphs. So the easiest thing to do is set the axes to graph the demand curve. You know exactly what the highest point is going to be. That's at P equals 0, and the intercept is 165. So the maximum Y value needs to exceed the 165. I'll use 175. And we'll set the min for the Y values to be around negative 15. And I'll use steps or increments of, let's say, $25. For the Y-axis, if we consider this, so it's going to drop about 50 cents for every, it's going to drop about half of a unit for every dollar. And so how many dollars will it take to drop to 0 from 165? That's about twice 165 is around 330. So I'm going to set the x-axis max to be around 350, and then the minimum maybe around negative 25. We'll do increments here of about 50. All right, I don't prefer to see the grid, so I'm going to take the grid away. I do like to see the arrows and the axes, so I'll put that in. And I do like to see labels. So the y-axis in this case represents the price per item. So I'm going to label that price. And the y-axis represents the quantity. So here I have a graph of these functions. But I do have a typo. I put in 250. Let's make that 25. And make this 0.5. Okay, much better. So here I have my supply and my demand function. So I first want to find the equilibrium price and quantity before taxes. So if I'll just click on one of the two functions, I'll notice that I have a point of intersection here labeled. In this case, it's 190 and 70. So here, remember the x-coordinate, 190, represents the price, and the y-coordinate, 70, represents the quantity. So our equilibrium price before taxes is $190, and our equilibrium quantity before taxes is 70 items. So now, let's consider the tax. So since there's an $8 tax on the producer, on the supplier, we're going to change the supply function. And so remember, we're going to replace the P in the supply function with P minus the tax. If it had been on the consumer, it would have been P plus the tax. So we're going to have a new supply function. The demand function will stay the same. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to create a function. I'm going to replace the P with, oops, let me undo that. Right here, I'm going to replace the P with P minus 8. So I'm just going to put in P minus 8 in parentheses right there where the P used to be. And so here's my new supply curve. Here's my demand function. And so if I'll just, again, check the point of intersection, now I have a point of intersection of 194 and 68, where 194 represents the new equilibrium price and 68 represents the new equilibrium quantity. So I found the equilibrium price before and after taxes. So before the $8 tax was imposed, the equilibrium price and quantity were $190.70 items. But now after the tax has been imposed, the new equilibrium price and quantity is $194.68 items. So if we break it down, let's consider the consumer's portion of the tax. So what portion of the tax is paid by the consumer? Well, they used to pay $190, now they pay $194. So they're paying $4 more as a result of this tax. That's their portion of the tax. So if we consider the producers, now remember the producers are going to collect the price of $194, then they're going to have to pay an $8 tax on that item that was sold. So after all is said and done, they get to keep $186. Before the tax was imposed, they sold it for $190 and got to keep $190. So in this case, they get to keep $4 less. So $4 is their portion of the tax as well. Now, if we consider the government, the whole purpose of the tax was to raise revenue for government needs. So what is the total tax revenue generated? So if we look at this, it's $8 per item sold times now the new number of items that will be sold, and that's 68, and that comes to $544. So a quick overview. Because of the $8 tax, the equilibrium price and quantity went from $190.70 items to $194.68 items. So production was reduced. Consumers are paying $4 more per item, while the producers are keeping $4 less per item. And the government is generating a total revenue of $544. I hope this helps.